in hand on honeymoon street. You'll find the taste of love so sweet. We're gonna buck the trend that everybody else can lead. Keep walking on honeymoon street. Keep walking on honeymoon street.
Hi, it's Ross at FoodTravelMusicLove.com, inspiration from the heart. Today's video is about domestic abuse. As with all the videos I do, although there might be kind of a central theme to them, this one being male victims of domestic abuse, I don't want females to feel kind of put out by this. The same as with separated parents, court cases, any legal procedures. I'm coming from where I've been through and the experience I've had, but obviously hopefully there'll be something that you can take from it. Even if it's kind of you realising your own circumstances and what you've been through or are going through. So this is for all and anyone who can take anything from it, really. We know that the incidents of domestic abuse are like thousands a week. How can you ever really calculate it? What is domestic abuse? One person's idea of domestic abuse could be very different to someone else's. Obviously you have three main categories, I guess: emotional, verbal and physical. You are the only ones that know if what you're suffering is abuse. Now, a lot of couples argue, a lot of couples fall out, a lot of couples disagree. Now that is healthy. I'm not talking about that. That's perfectly normal and healthy. That should be going on. As far as I'm concerned, that's pretty natural and healthy to have a little bit of disagreements. I've had couple friends that never talk, and it's no wonder that they broke up. Their marriages ended because they ended up doing things behind each other's back, and because they never spoke about things, although they knew that was happening. That's going down the other route. That's too far the other way. A perfectly normal, healthy balance. Every relationship's different, but in my opinion, a perfectly normal, healthy balance of relationship is to love each other, show that love to each other, and to occasionally, have some banter, have a few rows, get something out in the open, done. But it needs to be done and killed there. Domestic abuse is a whole different story. Abuse can take many forms, and not all abuse follows the same pattern. A lot of people will think, especially when it's male victim abuse, how can this happen? Especially if it's physical. A lot of these men are twice the size of the women. How can that happen? It happens through love. Certainly in my experience, it happens through love. You allow it to happen, and there's no way you could ever do anything to hurt that other person, and you ended up getting blindsided to it. There are three main types of abuse: physical, verbal and emotional. Now every one of you out there is going to react to those differently. Some of you, it could be the verbal side of it that affects you most, it could be the emotional side, it could be the physical side. It may depend on how you're set up as a person and how you're set up physically as well. That can have an impact, because although I don't like the attitude that, a bigger man, can't possibly be physically abused by a smaller woman, that's tosh. So although I don't understand that theory that people have, it goes without saying that if there is a big size difference, that is going to have an impact on the smaller person should they be the victim. So obviously that has to be taken into consideration in certain circumstances. The biggest one for me was always the emotional abuse. That's where I was always got right in the heart, to be honest with you. And not to sound corny, but literally it got me right in the soul as well, because it's affected me to this day now, many years on. There's certain things in my life that I can't do. I don't like to use that word can't, and that's what I'm going to come on to later, because I can do it and I will do it. But there's certain things that I want to try and improve on. There's certain things that I want to be able to get back to doing that are normal, and the way I behave as a result of what I went through is probably less than normal, to be honest with you. So there's things that need to be nipped in the bud. In my situation, my partner suffered from anxiety, depression, OCD. I'm fairly sure she suffered from bipolar as well, although it was undiagnosed. And I tried to use these as excuses for what I was going through, because she was going through those things. She also had various physical ailments which kind of added to the bitterness that she was feeling mentally. And I totally understood that. I totally understand it now, even in retrospect. I understand all of the feelings as much as one can when it's somebody else. you know, you don't want to come across as patronising, but you do your best to understand that. But what you do not want to do, and what I did, which was wrong, was to allow that to be an excuse for then what goes on. And that is not an excuse. It doesn't matter what somebody else is going through. If they start using that as a catalyst to abuse you, whether they mean to, whether they break down in tears afterwards or not, it has to be stopped. Now, I'm a big one for analogies, which can annoy a lot of people, but it kind of gets your point across to help people to see both sides of things. If you work for a company and your boss was a victim of attempted murder, he then goes on to attempt to murder one of your co-workers. Are you all just going to accept that and think, well, to be fair, he went through that, so, you know, let's get a cake out? It doesn't work like that, does it? So any of you that have ever heard any of my music or watched any of my music videos, you'll notice maybe there's a bit of a theme that runs through a few of them. Some of the songs I write are just complete creative writing, they just come from nowhere. But the ones that I'm kind of most proud of, the ones that I write that really come from the heart, really stem from this abuse that I went through. Ladder to your song.
1, 2, 3, 4. Broken hope, broken bones, on the ladder to your soul. I feel alone and feeling cold. In the shadow of your hold, you gotta hold. Watch me unfold on the ladder to your soul. I won't become another one, another prize for you. You're wrong to think that you have won, and I'll show you the proof. I won't give up, even though your mind is a black hole. I'll climb up on another rung on the
A perfect
ladder.
example there of someone who loves their partner deeply, and they're just trying to cut through the attacks that they're dealing with, just to try and get to the heart and soul of the person that they loved and the person they thought loved them.
I'll take the anger and I'll taste the pain. Just makes me stronger in your wicked games. I'll skip my turn if that's what I desire. You take your turn and start another fire.
Fires. This song I've used in a couple of my other videos, so it may or may not have been picked up, but this is something I'm really, really proud of, that one. It's more looking at the side of the other person continuing to just constantly want to fight, to want to abuse, to want to be in control, and the victim just saying, I just don't want it anymore, I don't want it, can we just stop this please? And it never gets heard, and it just keeps going around on a loop, and that is often kind of the common traits of abuse. Dungeness was probably my proudest songwriting moment and my saddest one. Now, Dungeness came out a couple of years ago, and it is quite clearly a video and a song about calling it a day, giving up on life. Suicide. There's no way of getting around it, that's exactly what it's about.
One last drive, one last time, giving up the fight. The tunnel shows a light, homeward bound, far from home. I'm on my way to where we come from, and break on this won't take long, 'cause now I've arrived, so the world can move on.
Now, the fact that this song came out while I was single, I'm not going to say how many years after the abuse occurred, but while I was single, it was affecting me to the point where I still felt I had no control over the things I was doing in my life because of what this person had done to me, and in part what they were still able to do to me because of circumstances. They were still able to do things and make me feel just this big, and that's not right, that's not acceptable. And that's why I got to a point where, alongside other things, you know, Dungeness.
Shed no tears when freedom calls. You can't say no, you can't resist the lure of escaping this hole. One less song, headphones on, doing what's right, so the world can move on.
There will be a video I do at some point to do with where the song Dungeness came about, and you know, anyone else who's dealing with those sort of feelings, because that's a completely different category. So I will come on to that in a separate video at some point.
The chains pulling on me one last time.
From my own experience in what I went through, I find it almost impossible to talk to anyone about it. I kind of let it become the norm, and that's what I'm saying. You cannot do that. You cannot let what's happening to you become the norm. If it becomes the norm, it becomes acceptable, and if it becomes acceptable, it becomes the norm again. It's this horrible vicious circle.
A final draw, a final drink, the final straw, a final daydream, one last cry, the taste of my tears, the aching in my heart, all the last years.
Make sure that you don't let the bad things affect you any more negatively than they did when it happened. It's taken me a long time, but a lot of what I went through, I've kind of used that energy to kind of be a catalyst for my future, to make sure that I use everything that I went through to succeed at the things that I was told I would never ever succeed at. Now, me just doing this, looking into a camera, was something that I could never have dreamt of doing when I was going through what I was going through. I was told I was shit at everything I did. I was told that, you know, everyone was laughing at what I was trying to do. I was a failure at my business. I was fat, I was ugly, I was everything that some of you may well be feeling right now about me. Point is, this is someone that was supposed to love me and love everything about me, and that hurt like nothing has ever hurt before, having that said to you 4, 5 times a week, week in, week out, month in, month out. Now I can use that as strength, and that's what I do. I use that every time I think, I can't do this, I can't get on and do that, there's no way I'm going to be it. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I fucking well can, and I'm going to do that. And I do it, and that's what I go on to do. So do it. Just use anything at all you can to get through. Okay, so if we're going to generalise about the categories of domestic abuse, I suffered from all three, but I've already said the emotional abuse was the biggest one, had the biggest impact on my life personally. But the physical abuse was less than pleasant. I had a knife held at me. I had blood drawn from my body on numerous occasions. I was punched, I was kicked. All things that, despite the fact that I was, you know, physically bigger than her, each time that happened, I thought, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? You're supposed to love me. You know, what's the point of telling someone that you love them if you're doing that to them? And it baffled me, abuse, for many years before I was sadly involved in it. I couldn't understand. I could not understand it. You really should never feel scared to call the police. If you've got no one else around, or you feel that that is the one option to go for, call the police. Now, it can be a bit of a balancing act, because you could call the police and, you know, it could kind of ignite the feelings that are going on, but sometimes you have to do what you got to do. It could hopefully be something that kind of creates a bit of a wake-up call for the culprit. You know, it could be something that kind of really makes them think, something has got to stop here, and they don't always realise it's them that's got to stop. If you've come to a realisation that you are the victim of any type of abuse, talk to your partner. Talk to your partner. Now, I got to a point where I was able to talk to her, but it was laughed at, or she cried about it. Obviously the laughing was kind of her way of dealing with it, like she knew what was happening but she couldn't act upon it, she couldn't do anything about it. The crying was kind of almost worse in a way for me, because then that would make me feel guilty. I've never been involved in a situation really where there's been adultery or cheating going on, but I'm aware that that's kind of similar. If you let someone off for doing something like that and you just say, no, I'll just get on with it, there's always that little trust issue. You're always waiting to see, the next time they put some lippy on, the next time he's done his weights, got his gun sorted out, whichever side it is, you're thinking, right, are you going it? And it's the same in any situation, the same with abuse. You're waiting, unless it's sorted out, you're waiting for the next time. And it does become a trust thing, but don't let that override, because that's what your abuser will say. Well, you've got to trust that this is going to work. Yeah, I trusted the previous month, year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Once you've gone through any sort of abuse, your life for a long time, until you've really found closure and accepted what you had, what you went through, and how you're dealing with that going forward, anything at all you have is going to be a kind of a balancing act, and that's what I've found. And what I want you to do is make sure that you don't have it happen to you again. So if you ever feel like you're being treated like that again, you think to yourself, I'm worth more than that. I've got one life here and I want to live it and enjoy it, and I'm not going to have anybody telling me that I'm anything less than what I think I am. And that's important, because it doesn't matter what you are. I think it's more important that you believe in who you think you are. Don't let anybody else tell you any different, because everything's subjective apart from what's going on in your own mind. So it's a balancing act between not letting that happen again. Don't be treated like you're something at the bottom of someone's shoe. Don't do that. However, there is a fine line and a balancing act between that and in letting it affect any chance of future happiness that you have. Because if you're always going to have that chip on your shoulder, the same again as if someone's been the victim of adultery, if someone's been cheated on and they love that person, it's very hard. It's a trust issue, no matter what it is. If you've been treated badly by a partner through whatever means, that trust is hard to try and get and keep with somebody else. Now, I know this because I've probably lost 2 or 3 potential relationships since, where I haven't been able to let go. I haven't been able to just be who I am. And it's taken me, a fair while now to get to a point where I accept who I am, I know who I want to be, and it's for other people to accept and understand that. So there were 3 main reasons why I didn't talk to anyone about it, and this might resonate with some of you guys. 3 main reasons. 1, I love the bones of her. I could not speak ill of her and let anybody know what was happening, because I just didn't want people to be thinking that of her. Number 2, I'll just wait. I thought I'll wait, that this will stop eventually. It went on for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't need to go on. It went on, and it didn't stop. And in my head, I was trying to rationalise it and think that circumstantially things may stop. Number 3 for me, this may or may not be the case for a lot of people, depending on their individual circumstances, whether there's children involved, etc. I was very scared of the implications of me coming out and saying what was happening, because I was told in no uncertain terms that if it did come out, there would be implications for me. Now, I'm trying to be a little bit subtle here, because the implications would obviously vocalise very obviously who the culprit of this situation was, and I'm not into doing that. Closure, opening up, whatever term you want to use, these can come in various forms depending on the type of abuse you're suffering and obviously your circumstances, your household, etc. For me, one of the most important and pivotal times while I was dealing with this was people actually overhearing it. As much as I could possibly do to protect the situation that I was doing my best to keep hold of, I wanted to keep a lid on it. I did not want people to know what was going through, for pride and because of this blinded love that I have for this person. I didn't want people to think badly of her. Once it started coming out, and in 2 or 3 random circumstantial phone calls that happened where, you know, these things you think just happened in the films, but it happened, and the line was left open, and then, you know, people in the family or friends heard what was going on, and they felt obviously funny about talking to me about it, because obviously I'd never mentioned anything like this about it before, but it certainly made it easier for me to know, even just by accident and coincidence, that someone else knew. And that is important, because you can feel so lonely. You can feel incredibly lonely in a situation where you're with someone to be the very opposite of lonely. And I felt more lonely at times when I was going through what I was going through than I do now. And I've been on and off single for a couple of years, and I feel far less lonely now than I did when I was with someone who I loved very, very deeply. And that, I think, is an important point to remember. That's something that some people may well also be going through. It's not right. It's really not right at all. After speaking to the friends and family that had seen what was going on, after speaking to them, I don't think I've cried so much in all my life. You know, I don't often cry, but knowing that what you were dealing with and what you were experiencing was real, because you start to doubt it. You know, you should never do this. For anybody else out there, you start to doubt whether what you're actually experiencing is real. How can this be happening? Someone that's supposed to love me so much, someone that I love so much, is doing this to me. Nobody else knows about it. Most things in life are real because they actually happen, because people see things. But when that controller, when that abuser is changing what's going up there, what's going on in your mind, you start to doubt it. It's a fundamental part of being a human being. You start to doubt things that you know happened. So actually having it kind of backed up by, if you like, witnesses, for want of a better word, it really does help. And that was one of the biggest moments for me. Even though it was kind of too late in terms of the relationship, I was by then in a healthier place, because I wasn't being abused anymore directly, although I said obviously the indirect impacts can kind of linger on, sadly, for a little while. I wasn't actually having to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, and knowing that other people were then aware of it and they saw it and heard it, one of the biggest things that I've ever dealt with. It was so important. So obviously I hope that you've all got someone out there that you can talk to. I really hope there's someone you can talk to. It may not be, depending on the type of abuse you're going through, it may not be appropriate for the police to be involved. What I would suggest then is maybe go and see Citizens Advice Bureau. Go and do it on your own. Take a friend with you. Take a friend with you. You don't even have to say what you're going for. Just say, can you come with me? I'm doing something that's important. Have a friend with you. You know, whether you're a bloke or a woman, doesn't matter. Take someone with you. You know, go for a pint afterwards. You don't even have to say what it's about. Sometimes, you know, there can be a fine line between privacy or opening up. Depends what sort of person you are. But just have someone there. Go and sit in the waiting room and go and talk to someone. Talking to a complete stranger can really help, because you haven't got that bias worry of like a mutual group of friends. You know, you haven't got that worry of what people are going to think. Especially if you're a bloke, that pride and ego feeling, you know, being really hammered. You know, it's not often that you'd go out, say with a group of your mates, and think, you know, yeah, let's get a round of Jaeger bombs in, let's do 4 or 5 pints and, you know, have a chat. Oh, by the way, you know, the old missus has knocked me about a little bit. Did I love the person that was abusing me? Yes, more than I've loved anyone at all other than my beautiful little girl. Was it hard, therefore, to think about it and talk about it? Incredibly hard. incredibly hard. It's taken me a few years to get to the point of looking into a lens to talk about it. But if you have to do anything like that, whatever you got to do, do it. Write it down, film it, write a song about it, you know, whatever it takes, talk to people. Has it affected me? Ongoing? Yes, it really has. It's taken a lot out of me, and it's affecting the way I behave now with future, honest, decent, good people. So do whatever you can. Do whatever you can and get out of that vicious circle. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, you're worth more than being abused by anybody at all. I just want to say again then, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've got something from this. I've certainly got something from it. Even if I'm just talking to no one and no one sees this, it's kind of helped me. So that could be important for anybody else. If you need to do that, get in contact with anybody at all you can. Even if it means messaging me, then I'll have a chat about it. No problems at all there whatsoever. So whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, don't let it happen anymore. You know, believe in yourself and respect yourself. Okay, Ross, FoodTravelMusicLove.com, inspiration from the heart. Thank you for watching.
One last drive, one last time, giving up the fight. The tunnel shows a light.